It's been 2 weeks since I introduced you to my laundry room / mudroom, and to recap, in my last episode, we continued to make huge progress. I used a hopper gun and applied texture on the walls for the very first time. I cut and built the doors to my upper cabinets, primed all of the walls and the ceiling, cut and added the new window trim, but the biggest noticeable progress was demoing out the old tile floor. My manager and I even got to play around with paint samples for the upper cabinets.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So we're done cleaning up the floors. Mortar that may have stayed behind, I need to make sure and pick up every single bit of that up because I've decided I'm going to be doing LVP in here. And in order for me to lay down LVP, the surface has to be completely smooth. One of the main reasons why I decided to do that instead of going with tile is time. Time, money, and workload. So it's gonna be a lot of work to re-tile this entire room. And I'm honestly not up for it. I know a lot of people were wondering, well, why didn't you just put new flooring on top of the old tile? I didn't want to do that mainly because if I did that, then my flooring was going to be that much thicker and higher than my other existing floors transitioning into the restroom and transitioning into the kitchen. I figured it'd be easier or better to just start completely fresh. The other thing I wanted to mention is we are ready to start painting the ceiling. Since the last time I talked to you guys, I haven't really done much except pick up all of the mortar off. I didn't do all of it. I was having to prep for a mini vacation that we recently took to Florida. So that's one of the main reasons why I didn't post last week. But in prepping for that mini vacation, I was running out of time to be able to do stuff in here. So I asked my husband if he could go ahead and remove the rest of the mortar since he had a little bit of free time. But anyway, he had some free time, so he was able to pick up the rest of that up. I started it, he finished it off for me. So that was great. This room feels so much more bigger now that it's primed, and I feel like adding a dark color again is really going to close in the space, and I want this to feel open and big and spacious. So that's what we're going for. So I've got some paint samples here. I'm just going to paint them on the wall, wait for those to dry, and then we'll go from there. I think if there's one thing I've learned about swatching paint colors is that you need to swatch a big enough sample size so that you can actually see the color. You'll have an easier time visualizing what that color would look like throughout the entire room. I don't think I like this one. We'll see. It is just enough to get by. Yeah, it is just enough. Here are my samples. I'm gonna wait for those to dry because obviously they dry different than they look when they're wet. While I wait on that to dry, I'm gonna get started on painting the ceiling, so that's fun.
While I waited on the ceiling to dry, I moved on to caulking all of my cabinet doors. I found that using this smaller tube was much more manageable than using a traditional tube and gun. Sometimes I understand I'm making all the wrong demands in life. It never pays in the end. But still once dry, I sanded the rails and stiles and then filled in any small gaps. While waiting on the filler to dry, I decided to fill the pocket holes on the cabinets. I only did this to the bottom side since the top side will be facing the ceiling and will never be seen. I used pocket hole plugs and removed the excess with my multi-tool. The time I got, it is just enough to get by. Oh, now I know
To cover the exposed raw edges of the plywood, and since I will keep them frameless, I added some iron-on edge banding for a more seamless look. I made sure to wrap it onto the bottom part where we filled the pocket holes, since you'll be able to see that as well.
It is just enough to get by. Yeah, it is just enough to get by.
Once the pocket hole plugs had some time to dry and set, I added some filler to help fill any leftover gaps and sanded it down once it was dry. These cabinets are pretty big, so in order to maximize the storage potential, I used a Craig jig to create shelf holes for shelves I will add later on.
Life is a winding road.
I went to my local Walmart and picked up one of these inexpensive clothing racks to use to hang my doors for painting.
Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights.
To hang the doors from the clothing rack, I attached these cup hooks to the tops of the doors. After drilling some small pilot holes, I just simply screwed them on.
Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs.
I used some plastic cloth hangers to hang them off of.
Holding my head high, even if the sky is falling down.
Finally, it was time to prime. I am using Kills 2 water-based primer with my Flexio Wagner spray gun. I did 2 coats with a light sand in between.
Jumping from cliffs so high, trusting our wings to fly.
At this point, my gun was starting to act a little bit funny or weird and splattering my primer, being very inconsistent and just not spraying the way it should. I continued through, and by the time I got to the doors, it got a little bit better, but it still wasn't great. After spraying the second coat, I moved on to caulking the window before painting the walls.
Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs.
I asked y'all over on Instagram which color from the samples I painted earlier you thought I chose, and if you chose the very last color on the right, then you were right. I felt it had the perfect green undertone to go with the cabinets. It was light enough to still make the room feel light and bright, but dark enough to withstand the abuse of a laundry room / mudroom. I am using the color Sculptor Clay by Behr, and it is in their scuff defense line. I've heard very good things about it being super scuff resistant, which will come in handy with my dogs. I did have to do 2 coats to get full coverage, and 1 gallon was just enough to get through all of the walls. Remember that the back wall with the cabinets will be full tile, otherwise I would have needed more paint. While the walls dried, I went ahead and drilled my holes for my hinges on the doors and lightly sanded them to prep them for paint.
Okay, so we are going to attempt, or I'm going to attempt, to spray my doors and my cabinets in the garage. It's been raining the past couple of days. After priming them, that was the last day that we had any sunshine in it. I'm hoping I can cover most of this area, and that should be sufficient enough for me to be able to spray in here. I don't see anything that I'm concerned about getting overspray on. If I do, I don't think it'll be a big deal. Hopefully not. But yeah, let's get to work. I asked you guys over on Instagram which was your favorite color. I think I also asked you on here kind of to help me decide and make the final decision on what color to go with. I was very surprised that most of you guys actually picked the lightest color on that roll of swatches, which was I don't know, it was kind of surprising to me because I thought maybe you guys would like more of like the darker greens. That seems to be very popular right now. But I personally really like the last two colors. The lightest one and the one right next to it. I ended up swatching them on the wall in the laundry room. So I ended up deciding on going with y'all's favorite, which was the super light one, which again was not my very first choice. It was my second best choice, but I ended up deciding on that one because that one actually looked a lot darker in the room than it did outside of the room. So I'm gonna be using this emerald urethane trim enamel paint. This is the same type that I used for my built-ins that I built in the living room. I really liked the way it sprayed. I really liked the formula. It worked really well. This is a color matched by Sherwin-Williams, but the color is actually muted sage from Behr. So that's enough chit chat. Let's go ahead and start painting all of this.
Sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon, side by side and through, no limit to what we can do.
As you can see, I'm still having trouble with my gun spraying inconsistently, but I still sprayed a single coat on everything, including the doors. You can see how I'm using the clothing rack for the doors. If my doors had been standard size and not so long, I could have left all of them on there instead of having to switch them out since they couldn't go in the middle space because of how long they were.
We're done.
I guess we'll catch up with you guys in the morning for round 2. Bye.
Good morning. I'm ready to start on the second coat. I obviously have to lightly sand everything and then go in with the second coat. I'm not going to show you the entire process just because I feel like it's really repetitive. If you've been on my channel, you've seen me paint a lot of things over the past year, including furniture and cabinetry more recently, and it's the exact same process every single time. Products are different sometimes and the results are different sometimes because of, you know, different design choices or whatever, but the process is the same. So I'm gonna start and then I'll catch up with you guys once everything is completely done and we're ready to start hanging these things. I just showered like maybe an hour ago, so I don't want to, and I washed my hair. I don't want to get oversprayed on my hair. So who likes my new cap? Anyways, we still have a dilemma. The sprayer was still acting a little bit funny, so I decided to take out my Home Right sprayer. I don't prefer this because the finish isn't as fine as my Flexio sprayer, but it's good enough. For some reason, my Flexio is just not spraying the way it normally does. I've never had this issue before. I just need to do one last pass on everything, super thin coat, just to make sure everything's even and I don't have any splotchiness in the finish, because right now on the doors there is a few spots where you can see where it's a little bit heavier on some spots versus others, and I don't want that obviously. And I'll catch up with you guys once I'm done with it because I don't see the point in showing you me spraying for like the millionth time. So I'll catch up with you guys when I'm ready to go ahead and hang them on the wall.
I needed to mark my studs on the wall of where I will be hanging the cabinets. So I used my stud finder, and then with some tape, I marked off on the ceiling where I will be able to see past the cabinets.
Also mark on here. I'm gonna use my 6 here as a spacer for a 1/4 inch. And then remove those. Give myself another 1/4 inch. And I should have my cabinet lined up with this one here.
The world had more of your smile. What if the wind could spread your love? What if your sweetness could reach everyone? There'd be no wars. Maybe the birds will.
Okay, I want to make this 100% clear that this is probably a 2-person job. They do sell some things that you can put under your cabinet so that it can hold it up for you. I obviously don't have one. I didn't have time to go buy one either, so I'm using a mop. Again, not recommended. I would not recommend for you guys to do this. I am doing it at my own risk, obviously. I am aware of the risks, so please don't come for me in the comments, please. I appreciate it. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and put this one up there, and then we're ready for the doors. I'm so excited, you guys. You have no idea. This is finally starting to like come together, and I think that you guys, more importantly, are gonna start to see things come together rather quickly after this and really see the room come to life. I have the vision in my mind, obviously in my head, and I can totally see the end result, but I know that you guys really can't because you're not in my head, you don't understand what I'm thinking. I think this is gonna really help solidify what look I'm going for, and it's gonna help you kind of grasp what I'm trying to go for. But anyways, enough of that. I'm gonna go ahead and hang this one up.
About your heart. Maybe the trees will whisper the word. Maybe the sun will spread your joy to the ones who lost their hope.
The last thing left to do was to attach the doors. Before I could, I had to remove the hooks from the top and add my hinges. I'm not worried about the small holes left behind from the hooks since they will never be seen since they will be on the very top, but you could if you wanted to fill them in.
You fill my head with roses. I can't help but dream away. Standing on a field with you and flowers everywhere.
Now let's remember how this room looked just 2 weeks ago and how far we've come since.
Blue dew, blue moon, kind of mysterious, shaded with someone I'm not really into. Do you need to fix it? Talking bullshit.
We still have so much work ahead of us, so stay tuned as I continue to make over my laundry room into the laundry room of my dreams. Subscribe and turn on your post notifications so you don't miss out. I love y'all, be kind, and I'll see y'all next week for more. Bye.